Syntax and sexuality. The military is now offering 150 grand to soldiers who speak Arabic. This while firing dozens of gay linguists who are already trained. Now the taxpayers' tab could be hundreds of millions of dollars. Bitter battle. A gay father flees with his son to Israel after a year-long custody fight. Now his former partner is pleading to get his child back. And on your marks, get set, gay. Our Jason Bellini gives us a look at Beijing's extra proud Olympians. A CBS News on Logo's special edition for Monday, August 11th starts right now. Hi everyone. More than 10,000 athletes representing 200 countries in 28 different sports, all adding up to more than 3,600 hours of television. There's no question this is already shaping up to be the biggest and most spectacular Olympic Games in history. We have only one correspondent who can cover all that. We go now to our own Jason Bellini, who's in Beijing. Hey, Jason.
Hey, Itay. Well, let me tell you this. It is steaming hot here, but aside from that, I've been having a wonderful time. The people here in China could not be more gracious, and they couldn't be more excited to be the hosts of this game. People I know here, people I've met here from around the world, so far have been duly impressed, but things are just now getting underway. We've got quite a few days left of the games here.
Let's talk a little bit about the gay athletes. Do we know how many are out there?
Well, there's an unofficial tally that comes from Outsports.com, and that is 10. Two of them are Americans. You've got Natasha Kai, she's a soccer player, and Lauren Lappin, who plays softball. But so far, the most talked about out athlete is Matthew Mitchum. He's a diver from Australia, and I just saw a press release from the International Federation of the Gay Games, and here's what it says. They're encouraging people to send thousands of messages of support to Matthew as a sign of appreciation of all out athletes who practice at every level. Earlier, I spoke with John Amici, the former NBA player who's out, and I asked him about that number. And this was before we actually knew there were 10. Back then we thought there were 6. It was a couple days ago. So here's what he had to say.
There are probably hundreds of them here, even though 6 of them are out.
Only 6.
It's just not really that surprising. And again, I always think we have to be careful. It's not an indictment of sports that there are only 6 out gay athletes. It's an indictment of the society within the sports.
So, Jason, did you get a chance to meet any of them?
Well, unfortunately, not yet. And the reason for that is, for the most part, they're on lockdown in the Olympic Village for security reasons mostly, and also they're trying to keep their focus before their events. Publicists for these athletes and representatives for these athletes have told me that they pretty much want to wait until after they've competed, till they've done their thing, they can show what they can do, and then they'll talk to us, hopefully.
Now, I know you have one more story for us about Beijing later in the broadcast. What are you going to show us?
I do indeed. I spent a day with LGBT activists here in Beijing. They welcomed me into their world, and it was absolutely fascinating. I'll have that for you later in the broadcast.
Can't wait to see it. Jason Bellini for us in Beijing. We'll talk to you in a bit. As the wars in both Iraq and Afghanistan go on, the U.S. military is having a hard time getting soldiers to extend their contracts, double that for those who speak critical languages. Recently, the Army announced it was going to offer a staggering $150,000 retention bonus to people who speak Arabic. But according to the Government Accountability Office, more than 60 linguists specializing in Arabic and Farsi were expelled from the military for being gay. Joining us now from Washington is Steve Rawls, a spokesperson for PFLAG, Parents and Friends of Gays and Lesbians. He's also a former spokesperson for the Service Members Legal Defense Network, a group that represents gay troops. Steve, let's start with, how much is this actually costing the taxpayers?
The price tag for this law is now $364 million to implement it, $150,000 now to retain linguists who could be replaced or serve alongside openly gay troops, and then the cost of just processing the law, processing service members out of the armed forces. It's an extraordinarily high price tag that the American taxpayers are being asked to meet.
Do we have an actual number of how much that's actually going to cost?
Just the implementation, the day-to-day implementation, is averaging $368 million since implementation, Plus, we now have 6 Arabic linguists who, if retained, would have each saved the military $150,000. So that adds well over another $1 million to the price tag.
Last month, Congress held its first hearing on Don't Ask, Don't Tell in 15 years. In it, Elaine Donnelly, the president of the Center for Military Readiness, testified that we weren't losing that many critical people due to the policy. So is 60 a lot of people or not?
60 on the ground in Baghdad, on the ground in Afghanistan make a considerable difference. And especially now when you see the price tag that the Pentagon is putting on each of those individuals, it's not an insignificant number, and it shows just how out of touch with the day-to-day operations of the armed forces Elaine Donnelly really is.
This story's gotten a lot of press, a lot of buzz in the media. Do you think it might actually have a positive effect in terms of repealing Don't Ask, Don't Tell?
The news of this retention bonus is one more argument that is pushing repeal forward. The real test will come in November. The political environment after the November elections will decide the ultimate fate of the law over the next few years. But this is one more reason to go on the growing list of good reasons to get rid of Don't Ask, Don't Tell.
Steve Rawls, as always, we appreciate you taking the time.
Thank you.
Now for a quick check of the stories making headlines, we go to Shamian Antoine, who's sitting by at the newsroom. Hey, Shamian.
Thanks, Itay. Barack Obama has tapped Wisconsin Representative Tammy Baldwin to co-chair his LGBT steering committee. She'll be helping to spearhead the Obama campaign's outreach to gay voters. Baldwin made history back in 1999 as the only openly gay woman to be elected to Congress. Although Baldwin originally endorsed Senator Hillary Clinton, she came out in support of Obama earlier this month. More than 22,000 researchers, activists, and global leaders gathered in Mexico City recently for the 17th Annual AIDS Conference, petitioning governments around the world for increased access to treatment for those most affected by the disease. This is the first time the conference has been held in a Latin country. One of the things researchers are saying is that more resources need to be diverted to fight AIDS among young gay men, particularly those with substance abuse problems. A new study shows that that group is far more likely to spread HIV to others. And finally, he's considered one of the founding fathers of the gay rights movement. Now, the California Senate is taking steps to declare former San Francisco supervisor Harvey Milk's birthday a holiday. In 1977, Milk became the first openly gay elected official for a major U.S. city. He and Mayor George Moscone were shot and killed by former supervisor Dan White on November 27, 1978. The bill has been approved 22-13 by the Senate and now awaits approval by the governor. And those are some of the stories making headlines across the country. Now let's send it back to Itay in the studio.
Our Shamian Antoine in the newsroom. Thanks, Shamian. Coming up next, showtime for China. And it comes with a lot of exposure. A rare look at the gay community in Beijing. But first, a tug of war. It's the first abduction case involving a gay couple in New York. The story of little Jedediah.